Hiya folks, just a reminder to check out my other channel, How to Rock Spirit, where I talk about psychedelic spirituality and astrology. Hope to see you there. Good day YouTube, I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock a Campfire, and thank you for watching my show. Today's episode is going to be on an awesome tune called Snowblind Friend. Originally by a guy named Hoyt Axton. Don't really know him that much, but I know that Steppenwolf did this song, and it's a beautiful tune. It's a very deep, heartfelt tune about a guy who's got a friend or a brother, who's doing all these drugs and is kind of lost in the drugs. He's letting the drugs use him rather than him using the drugs, properly. This is obviously written in a time when drugs were just becoming like a big thing, and humankind hadn't really figured out exactly how to deal with them in the proper way. And so it's a very perfect song for Steppenwolf to have played, because they're obviously a very psychedelic band and they were from that era, right? And so that's probably why they took this song and made it into their own version. And I love their version. It's just some beautiful words in here, He only, it talks about how this guy only had $1 to live on till next Monday, but he spent it all on comfort for his mind. And then do you say you think he's blind, There's lots of people that, when you're doing bad, hard drugs like, cocaine and stuff, and all these drugs that kind of, the big line in here is, he said he wanted heaven. It's like everyone wants a little bit of heaven, but you gotta let it come slowly. Sometimes you gotta go through a bit of hell, and you gotta deprive yourself of that ecstatic pleasure of cocaine or something like that, you know what I mean? You get that little bit of heaven, and then the hell is just constantly there until you get back to that place again. And that's why he says, he said he wanted heaven, but praying was too slow. So we bought a one-way ticket on an airline made of snow. And do you say you saw your good friend flying low? It's like he thinks he's flying, but he's flying low. It's just a very good image, a very deep drug image. And everyone knows people who have gotten into drugs too much, and, it's a very sentimental song for anybody like that, So I figured I'd play this song for you guys, show you guys this tune. It's a beautiful tune, and I think everybody should add it to their repertoire. Anyone with a 60s-y sort of flow, like mine. Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to show you guys the song. It starts off with this main riff in the song. And it's kind of just, you're in G, and what you want to do, it's I'm always doing these chords where it's a G chord, got your third finger on the third fret of the low E, fourth finger on the third fret of the high E, and then you let the fat part of your third finger sort of kill off that A string, so you can't really hear the A string. And so you're basically just doing a big G chord without the second string. And what you want to do is you want to go bass and then high, down, down, and then upstroke on the pick for that high note, and then you accent, you're kind of accenting the low G, the high G, and then the B string, bam, 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 and then you hit the bass strings after, low, high, B, low, and then you go downstroke into the C/G, which is basically a C chord with your pinky on the high E string on the third fret, and then you bring your third finger down to obviously the third fret of the low E string. And you want to anchor your third finger there and your fourth finger on those G notes, so that you're just going from the G, and then you hammer on your second finger and your first finger on those other parts of the C chord. Second fret of the D string, first fret of the B string. What I like to do is, if you can do this anyway, you kind of stretch your pinky up to the high, the fifth fret of the E string, and you go D, A, B, and then you kind of carry your pinky onto the suspended fourth, which is the third fret of the E string, and and then you come into the C chord. And what I usually do is do some kind of fancy hammer-ons and stuff on the C chord. Hammer on your 2nd fret and then accent the G after, right? So after that D, C, and then so that's when we come into the main chords, right? So I'm just going to go through the main chords and show you guys what they're all about. You say G to the C to the G to the A major. C on the pavement with misery on his D chord. Stoned on some emotion he found upon the wall of some unholy bathroom. So this is the part where you come in and just kind of slam it into that G chord to the C, right? He only had $1 to live on till next Monday, but he spent it all on comfort for his mind. Do you say you think he is blind? And then after you hit that, do you say you think he is blind? You come back into the main riff. I think you just do it twice, but maybe if you want, you go to the D chord, do that thing. Right? Someone should call his parents a sister or a brother. So then you basically go through the whole 2nd verse, which is basically the exact same chords as the 1st verse. And it's basically the same thing all the way right down to where you see, so he bought a one-way ticket on an airline made of snow. Did you say you saw your good friend flying low? And then this time when you stay in the G riff, you do this. Flying low, dying slow. And then you come into an A chord sort of like out of nowhere. They just kind of like brrrp, and they just kind of lift it up, the Steppenwolf version, right? And then you basically do the whole first verse again in the A chord. You say it was this morning, or the key of A. So what you want to do is you want to sort of memorize the chord progression that was the first part of the song, and you're taking the same chord progression, which is the number system, okay? We're playing with all these chords and stuff, but there are distances between the chords that you try to memorize when you're trying to do a key change. So the first part of the song was in the key of G, okay? So we'll consider G to be the first, right? So, you know, you say G to the C is the fourth of G, right? And you gotta memorize that distance for when you go to the A chord. So it's like first chord, let's call G the first chord, because that's the key of the song in the original part. First chord to the fourth chord, to the first chord, to the second chord, because A is the second of G, right? G, A, 1, 2. When you last saw your good friend, see a second chord. Now fourth chord, the pavement with misery on his fifth chord. So D is the fifth of G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the G major scale, right? Now we're going to take the same distances that are in the same chord progression of the first part of the song in the key of G. We're going to lift the whole chord progression up one key signature. So to the trained ear, it's the distances in the notes that make the flow of the song and the flow of the melody. You know, it's not the specific chords that make up a song, rather it's the actual distances between the notation, you know, the tones, right? So that's why you could play any song. You could literally just, if you wanted to, you could literally just throw a capo on the second fret and do all the G chords, you know. You say it was this morning when you last saw your good friend. You can literally do that, and it would be the same thing as this next A part that I'm about to do. But obviously, if you're playing with the guitar, you don't want to just, give me 1 sec, everybody, I'm just going to throw this capo on. Right? You want to actually, for a song like this, I like to actually just have the chords and redo the whole song, lift it up to 1 key signature without the capo, right? So, basically, you know, you're going first chord to the 4th chord, because D is the 4th of A. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the A major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, right? Do, re, mi, fa. You say it was this morning when you last saw your good friend. B, B being the 2nd chord in the key of A, and then D is the 4th again. Lying on the pavement with misery on his brain. E being the 5th chord. Stoned on some new potion he found upon the wall in some ungodly bathroom in some ungodly hall. He only had $1 to live on till next Monday, but he spent it all on comfort for his mind. Do you say you think he's blind? And so you can even keep that riff going. What I like to do is I'll sort of bar my first finger by doing this. I usually advocate to stick your knuckle out when you're playing chords, but for this particular A chord, I always like to have my finger in like that. You don't want to do this too much because it kind of hurts your finger. But anyway, you bar your first finger onto the 2nd fret of the D, G, and B string, and then you use your 3rd finger to go to the 3rd fret of the B string. Use your 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and that's like the A suspended note, and then you try to get your 3rd finger down to the 4th fret of the D string, and that's like an A chord, it's like a D with an A on the bass. Yeah, D/A. Just like in the before, it was a C/G, right? C/G with the C on the face and the G on the bass, lifting that up, basically each of those notes by 1 chord, right? So it's D/A. So anyway, yeah, A. That's how I usually end the song, right? So that's pretty much all the chords right there, and it's a beautiful song. I don't know if any of you guys know this song. I mean, a lot of people watching are going to be looking for this song and finding this, but for any of you fans that are just watching my show and have never heard this song before, listen to the lyrics. They're just beautifully endearing lyrics, psychedelic, and so sentimental. I love this sentimental crap. That's just me anyway. So I'm going to go through this whole song for you guys just so you can see what it's like played the whole way through. So this is Snowblind Friend, originally by Hoyt Axton, but I'm thinking of the version by Steppenwolf. I've really not even heard the version by Hoyt Axton. I'm doing the version by Steppenwolf because that's the one I know and love. And I hope you guys learn to know it and love it too. Enjoy. Saw your his parents, a sister or brother. They'll come and take him back home on a bus. But it'll always be a problem to his poor and puzzled mother. And he'll always be another one of us. He said he wanted heaven, but praying was too slow. So he bought a one-way ticket on an airline made of snow. Did you say you saw your good friend flying low? Flying low, dying slow. There's like a solo part here. I guess I should have mentioned that there's that little part there. G, C, C, G, and then it goes to the A. You say it was this morning when you last saw your good friend, lying on the pavement with misery on his brain, stoned on some new potion found upon the wall of some unholy bathroom in some ungodly hall. He only had $1 to live until next Monday. He said he wanted heaven, but praying was too slow. So he bought a one-way ticket on an airline made of snow. Did you say you saw your good friend flying low? Dying slow, flying low. Beauties. Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that. At the last part, on the A chord part, after you said he wanted he only had $1 to live on till next Monday, but he spent it all on comfort for his mind. And then it kind of chills on the keyboard for a bit. Is that right? Sorry. Mind, yeah. And then he goes into, he said he wanted heaven, but praying was too slow. So he bought a one-way ticket on an airline made of snow. Sorry, I guess I should have mentioned that. But I love the lyrics to this song. I hope that you guys could see everything that I did there. I did it right that when I just played it the whole way through. So just go by that. Yeah. But there's just other parts of these lyrics that are amazing, you know? Someone should call his parents, a sister or brother, and they'll come and take him back home on a bus. But it'll always be a problem to his poor and puzzled mother. You know? I always consider the mother to be like the womb, the stagnant, non-transcendental environment. You know? And people in the 60s, and even people, especially in today's time, too. We come along and we do these, you know, if you get into drugs, and especially if you get into psychedelics and stuff, you're always going to be a problem to where you're coming from. Because where you're coming from is the restricting limitations that you're trying to get out of, that we're always trying to transcend, you know? They say in Zen, when you climb to the top of a mountain, you don't stop climbing, you know? There's never truly a top to the mountain. There's always more steps, you know, even if you just don't see it. We're always trying to transcend our current states of self, to transform ourselves out of the stagnance of karma and out of the repressive states of being that we've been. And it's a problem for people like your mother, your family, your friends, who have gotten used to you being a certain way. It's like the crab in the bucket thing, you know what I mean? You got a bunch of crabs, and if one of the crabs tries to escape the bucket, all the other crabs come along and go, no, 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 come back down. We need us all. We're all scared together, you know? And the character in this story, you know, he'll always be a problem to his poor and puzzled mother who just can't understand why the kid can't just be normal. Why can't you just do what you're told, you know? He'll always be a problem to his poor, puzzled mother, and he'll always be another one of us. It's just beautiful, man. It's so sentimental. Yeah, so that's pretty much that song, guys. That was Snowblind Friend by Steppenwolf, I'll say. That's the version I know. And I hope you guys dig that, and I hope you use it in your repertoire, man. It's a beautiful song and a brilliant song. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next week.